Well, we have been lucky over recent weeks to catch up with some of the other great names in the club's history, a lot from a similar era, the leadership around the time of the 97 Grand Final with Robert Harvey and Stuart Lowe, and obviously a very young Aussie Jones. I've had Aaron Hamill and Lenny Hayes, and we are joined now by one of the co-captains in the 97 Grand Final, a three-time best and fairest winner and one-time games record holder at the club in Nathan Burke. And Burkey, thanks for jumping on with us, obviously doing terrific work now coaching the Western Bulldogs AFLW team. And ironically, your first game was back at Moorabbin, but nice to have you with us.
Yeah, evening, boys. G'day, everyone. Great to be with you. And it was a great day, that one. I was glad to be part of the Saints' first AFLW foray, first game, even if it was in the red, white, and blue rather than the red, white, and black.
Spoiled the party as well, but just going back to your journey, I guess when people think of you, either as St Kilda supporters or otherwise, they probably remember the helmet and obviously being the nuggety little number 3. But I'm curious to start, not necessarily on a negative, but that journey through to wearing the helmet. I mean, the 91 Elimination Final was one early one where you ran into Gary Ablett in a polite way of saying that. And I know my dad's adamant that cost St Kilda that particular final, a warm day, only a couple on the bench, losing you who were playing on Gary Hocking. But can you take us through, I guess, the series of events and the challenges that you faced along the way that led to you donning the helmet?
Yeah, certainly. Through that early stage of my career, I had a problem where if I got a semi-forceful knock, I get what they diagnosed as a form of migraine, which was in about 5 minutes or so, I'd get the blurred vision where I couldn't see. And then after the game, I'd get the nausea and the headaches and be pretty crook after the game. And naturally, when you can't see, footy field's not a great place to be. So I was coming off too often. And it was Kenny Sheldon, actually, the coach, who just sort of said, mate, we don't know whether we can keep playing you if you're going to come off all the time, because those days we only had a couple on the bench. And that's a big loss. So naturally, the only thing to think of is, okay, well, how can I fix this? You either keep your head out of the way or you don the helmet and see how that works. So reluctantly, it was a case of try this or don't play. And obviously, when you're faced with those sort of choices, it's quite an easy decision to make that put the helmet on. And so anecdotally, all I can tell you is that I had the issue less and less wearing the helmet than when I wasn't wearing the helmet. As we know now, it's not really it's the migraine is the symptoms of the concussion, the form of concussion that I was getting. But at the time, it worked in my favour because they weren't diagnosing it as concussion, because then it would have been, okay, you might have to miss a week or you might have to miss 2 weeks. It was a migraine. Once you get over that, well, great, just roll you back out next week. And at the time, I was more than happy with that, but we're a lot wiser around those things now and probably would have missed quite a few games. But that was the reason why. I still had the problem through hits in the chin or the nose. I got one or two of those. But it certainly occurred less and less once I was wearing the helmet. Still happened sometimes, and depending on the state of the game, I'd come off. I always end up with a small field of vision. So if I didn't want to come off, I'd just sort of eye an opposition player and tag them for a period of time because I could see where they were going. And sometimes the coach would say, well, why the hell were you tagging that bloke? It was mainly because I couldn't see anywhere else and didn't want to come off. But they were the sort of stupid things we used to do in those days.
So one that comes to mind of that sort of situation here actually is the 96 pre-season grand final. I remember you do kick the first goal at a game and not long later on, you're sort of off the field and never really returned. Is that basically what happened?
Yeah. That was almost, it was a highlight and a low light in one, because I don't remember a lot of the times when it happened, but I remember this one. Craig Devonport was actually playing for Carlton then, and the ball got kicked out of our back line, and I jumped up in the air, and Craig, for some unknown reason, sort of ran underneath me. And for the first time ever in my life, I got a bit of a ride. It was a bit of a specky up there. And I think I got a bit stunned. The ball hit my hands, and it fell down in front of me. I sort of landed on my feet, grabbed the footy, and the Carlton player came running through. I think it might have been Ian Aitken or someone. It came through and cleaned me up, and that was Earl Sporting come through, cleaned me up, and that was it for me for the rest of the game. But yeah, so it was my closest chance ever of taking a specky. But then with half a second, I was off the ground. So a highlight and a low light all rolled into one.
Berkey, heading back to the start of your career, you were drafted. You came to the club when you were 17, just over 17. You made your debut. What was it like walking into a club that had guys like Tony Locke, Danny Frawley, who were already established, but a little bloke from the Pines walking into that club, and you've got, you know, Stewie Lowe and a freakish Nicky Winmar, and, you know, these sort of blokes. Could you tell that some of these guys were destined for greatness even back then?
Yeah, absolutely. I played a year in the under-19s in, was it 86, and Lowe started off that year he did the pre-season in the 19s, and then Plugger landed on a sprinkler and cut his knee open, and that was sort of the fast track of Lowe off, so I didn't really get to play with him in that year. I played all of that year. I broke my ankle playing basketball towards the end of that year, and I did a whole pre-season with the under-19s, and we used to train after them, and you'd see the guys, and every now and again they'd come over to the under-19s rooms and do weights and do boxing and that sort of stuff. So you saw them from afar, and they these big, huge champion men that were playing the game. And Rene Kink was there at the time, and he used to get on the boxing bag and punch crap out of that. It was quite scary to watch. And so I did the whole pre-season with the under-19s, and actually played the first 2 games that year with the under-19s. And then the big thrill was to get a call up to the reserves, and got a call up to the reserves and played 4 games there. And then Darryl Baldock called myself and my father into the office and said, "Hey, we're thinking about giving you a game." And my dad was a bit unsure, because I was a 70-kilogram little 17-year-old that only ever played 4 games against men. But I said, "Mate, who are you to go against the great Darryl Baldock? If Darryl Baldock thinks I'm good enough to play, well, you just take a back seat, old fella." And that was it. So it was a pretty quick rise. I didn't get to actually spend a lot of time with these guys, but you know, my first training night with the seniors, and you've got Joffa Cunningham and Greg Burns and Trevor Barker. They were the sort of the heroes at the time, and to run around with Joffa and Burnsy and Barks, that was really something special. Whereas the other guys, Nicky's in his first year, and Plugger, 87 was the year he won the Brownlow, so he just sort of started to take off. But it was those old guys that were just amazing to me, and it really set the tone for how do you integrate a young fella into the team. It was Barks and Joffa and Burnsy in particular that did a great job of that.
So you spoke about that year in 86 when you were playing under 19s. The senior team only won 2 games that year, but then 87 in your first year they won 9, including 5 in a row. And you spoke about Plugger, and we had a club legend coaching us in Doc. Robert Harvey would arrive the following year. Could you tell straight away? Obviously, you came to a club that had won 4 wooden spoons in a row, but could you tell that within a few years we were going to be all right? Because ultimately we were, with a finals appearance in 91 under Kenny Sheldon. Even though sort of 89 and 90 had started well, but faded out a bit in the back half.
Yeah, well, when you've got a guy like a Plugger up front, and you've got Danny down back, and you've got Nicky Winmar in the team, and there's quite a few younger ones coming through at the time. I think that there was the nucleus of something better, and I got to hand a lot of credit to Kenny Sheldon and his crew who came to the club, and a lot of that Carlton crew that came along with him, that really just sort of added, they'd been part of success, and they knew what success took. Whereas previous to that, Doc loved the man, but he come from training horses down in Tasmania back into the fold of professional football at the time. But these guys took that to another level. And I think that was probably the catalyst of us making the finals in that 91-92, was that they said, the way that we're doing things, with the level of talent we've got, it's probably going to end us middle of the road. But if we add the professionalism to it, well then, who knows where that can take us. And as you saw, a couple of years in the finals, but unfortunately, as we do at the Saints, we don't have a lot of, we don't persist a lot. As soon as we have a bit of a dip, then that's it, coach is gone. And that happened every coach that I had. And poor old Kenny was on the end of that.
Yeah, so he took us to two final series in a row,
Yep.
went 10-10 the next season, but then was shown the door. It's not the worst record you'll ever see of a coach being kicked out. Do you think it was just a completely different, looking to go somewhere else, a different direction, or is it maybe a little bit more to it, or anything?
Yeah, it's we've always had the concept of icing on the cake. We need someone to just put the icing on the cake. Stanhope gets to the grand final, not so good the year after. Okay, we need someone to put the icing on the cake, and when he's gone, well then Blighty will do it, and then someone else will do it, and we just haven't persisted. Whereas you look at other clubs, look at Collingwood now. I guarantee you, if Nathan Burke had been coaching St Kilda, there's no way he'd be still coaching now. We would have made that call. Luke Beveridge even wins a grand final, doesn't make the finals for another 2-3 years. Well, I don't think we would have put up with that. We would have got rid of it. So coaches like players. They have, they learn and they get better, and sometimes not every year is exponentially better than the last year. And we just haven't really put up with that. And I think that's probably been to the detriment of our club along the way, because we have had some really good men who have been good coaches.
Time running out. 13 seconds left for the Saints if they want another goal before the siren. Everett! No mark, play on. Burke's got it. Nathan Burke in the nick of time. Just as the siren sounded for three-quarter time.
We referred to it a little earlier. That 1991 team was the best team we've had for a long time. First final series since '73, I think. That was, a lot of people would say that we were the best team in the league heading into the finals, and probably some dodgy fixturing decisions by the AFL maybe put a stop to that season, along with a few other reasons. But like Parker said, he got a bit of a hit in the elimination final against the Cats. Do you remember much about that game? Because that is one of the greatest games ever played of AFL football.
Yeah. I remember how the hit happened. I went into shepherd one of my teammates, and Gaz was coming the other way, and my head and his elbow collided. I think he ended up with 2 weeks for that one. But it's funny what you do remember. David Grant actually got cleaned up as well. And both Grandy and I were sitting on the bench, and as it turned out, we both had blurred vision and couldn't see. So we were both sitting there just staring out blankly, and we'd hear a roar up either end, because Pluggered was kicking a bag at one end and Billy Brownless was kicking up a bag at the other end, and we'd hear the roar and have to turn around and say, was that us? Was that them? Was that us? Was that them? And unfortunately, what was happening also was we were getting messages coming back from the players on the field that we had quite a few other players that, given a normal game, they would have come off. They were injured. But because poor old Grandy and I were sitting there unable to go back on, they had to stay on. I think we ended up with Paul Harding playing fullback at one stage, and some other players that weren't quite right had to stay on the ground. So that's probably what I remember out of that game. And I also remember the fact that we finished third on the ladder, and the year after that, they gave third on the ladder a double chance. But I think when you look at the teams that were in that year, Geelong and West Coast, we had to got through that one. Well, then I definitely think talent-wise, we were a chance to go pretty far.
Yeah, if we win that elimination final, we then get a double chance, a second semi, 2 chances to make a grand final. But I think the thing that frustrates Saints fans a lot was that the 2 best players on the ground for Geelong were Billy Brownless and Gary Hocking, and I think you were playing on Hocking and David Grant was playing on Billy Brownless, which was obviously frustrating given the way that unfolded. But the next period where we had a little bit of success was through that obviously winning the pre-season in 96 and then into the grand final in 97. You graduated from a good young player to a dual best and fairest winner and co-captain. Can you take us through, I guess, a leader's perspective of the rise in 97 and how you all turned it around and even, I guess, your memories of the build-up to what ultimately would have been a frustrating day?
Yeah, it probably started at the end of 95. Obviously, Plugger left, which was a big blow for everybody. Danny Frawley retires, and we had another couple of senior players that had moved on to other places. The football world in general probably thought, well, there's the end of the Saints for 5-6 years. You know, we're talking rebuild. For Plugger going, we end up with 4 17-year-olds in Ozzie Jones, Joel Smith, Tony Brown, Matty Lappin. So you get 4 17-year-olds. People don't think, okay, well, they're going to zoom you up the ladder. We didn't have a single player good enough to step into Danny's shoes as a leader. So basically, Stuart and I became co-captains. He had his strengths and I had my strengths, and hopefully together we made a decent captain. We knew straight away that, well, a couple of the old senior players, we got together and we said, look, if we're in the wilderness rebuilding for 5 years, we're 26, 27 now, that's probably going to see out our career. We're going to have no success. So how do we fast track this? We can't fast track it through the draft because you only get one chance a year to do that. So the way that we fast tracked it was through the culture, basically. We cottoned onto the theory that you have the culture whether you like it or not. And quite often it evolves by default. So the loudest people, they tend to determine how we do things around here. And with the Saints, there's always a bit of, oh, well, that's how we've always done things, so don't rock the boat. That doesn't work. So we set out on a path of culture change, and how we did that was with our leadership. So we had 2 leaders, and we had a leadership group for the first time ever. We had emerging leaders and young leaders. So if guys wanted to work their way up to become captain, there was a pathway they could follow, and we taught them some leadership skills. We had to redesign who our heroes were. Prior to that, our hero was Tony Lockett. Now, Tony was, to say he wasn't a great trainer is probably an understatement. He got by on natural talent. And so if you had immense natural talent and you can go out and display it, well, then we'd probably put you up on the pedestal. Fortunately, we had guys like Halves and Stuart Lowe who just trained incredibly hard. So we had to redesign our heroes and tell these young guys, hey, if you want to be good, you've got to be like Halves. You've got to be like Lowe. You've got to get into training by yourself and jump on the exercise bike. And we always knew when they were in early because there's a pool of sweat under the bike. So we're doing extras. So they were the players we had to make heroes of. We had to change the way that we communicated, in that we were very good at sort of hiding behind humour a lot of ways. If somebody turns up late, we'd more likely say, hey, did you bring the paper with you? Rather than saying, hey, you're late and that's not how we do things around here. Get here on time. By saying, did you bring the paper with you? It's almost like, I want you to know that I know that you're late, but I don't want to address it with you straight away. So I'll sort of couch it in the way that you'll get the idea. We had to get rid of that sort of talking and open and honest and direct feedback, all that sort of stuff. And by that culture change process, hopefully the way that we did things at the club was more likely to bring about the success that we wanted. It doesn't guarantee it, but it increases the likelihood. And so at the end of 95, we were 14th out of 16 teams. At the end of 96, we were 10th out of 16 teams, so 1 year into the process. 2 years into the process, the end of home and away, we're on top of the ladder. And that's not through getting high-priced recruits or anything like that. It's purely through that culture change process. And Stan Elton was part of that by giving the players a lot of ownership, a lot of say. We could pick, who we wanted in the team and training drills and all that sort of stuff. So I think it was more of a process that led to that success, rather than suddenly we're a good team and let's ride this for as long as we can. It was a 2 year process working up to that point.
So comparing the two, the 91-92 and the 97-98 sort of teams,
Yep.
going by what you're saying there, it's the 91-92 is probably more just pure natural ability. The 97-98 has moulded a team that has been able to come out on top there. But so...
Yeah, 91-92 was, we brought in some talent, Russell Morris and all the Carlton guys that we brought in. So we actually brought in talent more so than developed it. The other thing Kenny Sheldon did really well, Kenny was a master at getting the team united, playing together, all wanting to be there. Let's do this, Saints, and out we go. A bit like reminiscent of the Carlton players in the mid-'80s, that they played hard, they trained hard, and they were really stuck together as a unit. So Kenny got us doing that with the talent that he brought in. That's how we got there. The 97-98 team was completely different. We had a bit of that camaraderie, but it was more of a process of actions and behaviours and mindset that just increased the likelihood of us being good. That was the difference.
Yep. So the second half of 97, obviously we started 1-4 in 97, and we ended up going on a run. I think 9 or 10 in a row, leading into the finals, and then some things happened. Obviously, Lazar Vidovic injured, Spider injured, and the week of the grand final, some personal issues with some of the guys, Stewie and Nicky, and some of those things. As one of the captains of the club and a senior leader at the club, how did you deal with that week, and what was it like leading into the game?
Yeah, look, it was they were unfortunate events leading in. There's no doubt Spider and Laser would have made a huge difference to our team. Having said that, Adelaide had some significant outs as well that should have helped us probably more than what they did. But yeah, it would have been great to have those guys there. Nicky and Stuart had some issues as well. It's hard to sort of closely address them with so much else going on in the grand final. They're both very strong, proud guys who probably didn't. Their main thinking was, I don't want this to affect the team. I don't want it to be a big thing. So they wanted to keep it as low key as they probably could, and we wanted to just focus on the game. Was it a factor in us winning or losing? Probably not. The week leading up to it, people often ask me, would you rather not get to a grand final if you're going to lose? Because it must be extremely disappointing and frustrating and lives with you forever that you didn't win a grand final. Would you rather not get there? And my answer is definitely no. I'd much prefer to get to a grand final, have a crack at it. If we won, fantastic. If we weren't, if we didn't win, at the end of the day, it's football. Adelaide were better than us on that one day. It's not going to ruin the rest of my life. But the excitement on the St Kilda supporters during that time, I drive around the Bayside area and you see people painting their fence red, white and black. Shop fronts have all got red, white and black streamers on them, and Tommy Bench statue's got a jumper on it. And just the excitement that it brought to the St Kilda supporters, why would you take that away from them? You just wouldn't do it. So that was a highlight. I don't think I'm going to do anything else in my life that's going to warrant me being driven through the streets of Melbourne in the back of a car, in a grand final parade and people throwing streamers at you. I don't think I'm going to do anything that's going to warrant that ever again. Just running out on the MCG in front of all those people. When I think of the grand final, that's the stuff I turn my mind back to, not the actual scoreline and what happened. And I think you're a bitter old person if here I am, how many years later, 23 or something years later, and I'm ruining that couple of hours in my life.
Still 100% concur from a fan's point of view even. I mean, 97, 09 and 10, you'd give anything to change the results, but you wouldn't take back the fact that you lived through that period and how exciting it was. But fast forwarding, you'd win a best and fairest again in 99 under Tim Watson, and then a couple of injuries from that point on. When the 2003 came around and you made the decision to to retire. Can you take us through that? And was your final game particularly special in the sense that we won by 14 goals, but you played against the team you barracked for as a kid? Danny Frawley was coaching them. Stuart Lowe was an assistant coach, and Robert Harvey was still alongside you. So it would have made that day pretty special.
Yeah, it was. So the last couple of years, or the last 3 years, were a bit of a struggle. I did my knee in round 10. Was that 2001? Missed that year. Came back, did my knee again in round 3. Missed the rest of that year. And so I thought I'd give it one more crack, see how we go. Managed to play 19 straight, which was did I deserve a game every single week? I can't guarantee that I actually did, but I would be forever grateful for Grant Thomas for the way that he sort of handled me in the twilight of my career, and gave me a lot of respect, which I give him a lot of respect back for. The decision wasn't that tough for me to hang up the boots, because it sounds funny, but walking into the game each week, so in between where I park my car, kiss my wife goodbye, she says, good luck, don't get hurt, and I walk from that point into the rooms. That used to be the point when I'm sort of by myself, that it's almost like that Christmas morning, you get the excitement, it's the buzz, it's the stomach pumped. And when we were at Waverley, it was going around that inner tunnel at Waverley. I'd sort of jog to the rooms and the MCG, and wherever we played, you'd get that buzz and you'd sort of burst into the rooms. I found that at some stage during that last year, 2003, I'd lost that. I didn't have it. And try as I did to manufacture it, it was false. It wasn't really real. And to me, that was my signal that, you know what, this is probably the time. Because without that buzz, are you going to be able to do this to the best of your ability? And should be time to give someone else that spot in the team. And we made the decision to pull up stumps in round 19. It was Grant Thomas's decision, actually. It was round 20. I missed the one before that. Not many. I've never told anyone this, but first time in my life, I think I finished in round 20. The round 19 game, I pulled out with a sore quad. But that was Grant Thomas's idea, because he said, mate, because I think we were playing away somewhere around 19. And he said, if you get injured in this round 19, he said, that's going to be it. You're not going to have a last game at home. So how about we fake an injury? And we did. And I didn't play that game. First time I've ever told anyone that story. And because knowing that the round 20 game was the last home game. I think we had a game in Tassie after that and a game somewhere else. So that was going to be the last home game. So he said, look, and I said, look, I just want to keep playing because I've only got 3 games left. The other thing that went through my mind was that Lowy finished on 321. I would have loved to have finished on 321, same as him. But as it turned out, I wasn't going to miss 3 games in a row. So we made that last home game was the last one. So my family and friends got to come along and celebrate that. So it was a special occasion. The boys had a big win. And I don't think Danny was too happy with me. Get the boys up for a big win against his team. But that's a memorable match that I honestly don't remember a lot of matches, sort of a great deal about them. But that one certainly do. And
to finish that match off, you ended up handing over your number 3 to a young player at the club, Xavier Clark. Is there the reason behind you choosing him, or did he come to you and ask, can I take it from you, or how did that go down? Because
the year before, Lowy had given his jumper to Cozzy, so he started a bit of a tradition. So I thought about it, and I wanted to, because look, we had Luke Ball and these guys that were going to be really good players, but Xavier, for one, is an outstanding young man, and I knew that no matter whether Xavier went on to play 200 games for the Saints or 50 games for the Saints, whatever, it'd be he'd get the most out of himself. And he's a really quality young man. And at the time, I thought, the number 3 probably hasn't taken a mark over his head or a contested mark for about 15 years. So it's about time we put a bit of skill into the number 3. Somebody who could take a specky and had a left foot on him and ran pretty quickly. So it was a bit of a new look, number 3. But the main thing was he was just a quality young man. And when I asked him, I said, mate, you don't have to. If you want to make your own number, please don't feel like you have to. And he went away and thought about it. He came back. He was pretty chuffed with it. So, I still think that was a really good decision.
I read a stat earlier that over your career, you only played in 4 winning seasons. It must have been really difficult to stay positive. And Stewie Lowe told us a story that I'm not sure people had about a little while ago, that during that mid kind of 90s period, a few of our players were talked about being poached to Freo and Port, and there was a well-publicised story about Freo for him. And
yep.
At one point, he actually very seriously thought about going to Essendon and ended up staying. And obviously, loyalty to St Kilda supporters and St Kilda Footy Club is a massive thing. Was there a period in your career that you seriously thought about left and had that opportunity?
No, never seriously thought about leaving. Did I have the opportunity? Yes. There was offers and things on the table. One way of getting more money in this game is to jump from team to team. You end up getting more than what you're worth when you do. But no, it probably comes right back to where I started with the Trevor Barkers and the Greg Burns and the Joffrey Cunninghams. Those guys didn't have a lot of team success, let's be honest. But they had the respect of the St Kilda people for what they did for the club, and that always rang true. And it was a thing. It was almost something like, "Hey, I want that too." And the only way to get that is to live that and to knock back those offers and things like that. So I always knew I'd get the best of both worlds. If I didn't have football success, well then, you know what? Hopefully I get some success for hanging around the Saints. If I have both, well then, what better career could you ask for?
As we let you go, Berkey, the coaching aspect of it's obviously been working a lot in women's football for a while. Are you enjoying that role? Obviously, it was frustrating this year that the season came to an end prior to a finals campaign, and I guess it leaves a bit of a sour taste for everyone. But hopefully, when it does come back again, but how have you found that? It does look like it's been, a second chapter of your football career that you've really enjoyed.
I've absolutely loved it. I worked with the Saints girls for 2 years in the VFL, and then decided to make the leap into AFL land. But I love it for a lot of reasons. The girls are just wonderful to work with. There's a whole bunch of different challenges than working with the men, but they're challenges that I really love. You've got to be really relationship-based. But also in a lot of ways, it's probably closer to the football that I enjoyed playing through the 90s. It's not over-contrived like some of the men's games. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoy watching the men's games. But I think they are a little bit too formulaic. When a player picks up the footy, you know what they're going to do with the football before they actually do it. Okay, they're going to go backwards, they're going to go sideways, they're going to handball here. So it's very formulaic. With the girls, they don't have the skills to be able to do that. So it's far closer to the football that I enjoyed playing. It's you've got to win the hard footy. You've got to use it well, get it forward, bang it forward if you need to. But I like the style of football. I love working with the girls. It's never a dull moment. And it's as you said, it sort of breathed a whole new lease of life into me and football as well. And sounds corny, but the reason why I do it is that I firmly believe that if you're not making someone else's life better, well then you're wasting your own. And I just happen to have the football as the ability, as the sort of the avenue to make someone's life better. So hopefully these girls, when they come from the Bulldogs, they either leave as champion footballers, or they leave, they're better people and they've loved every minute of actually being there. So I'm just thankful that I get that vehicle to do something like that.
Well, Berkey, you're during your time at the Saints, there were a lot of ups and downs, a lot of highs, a lot of lows, but you were, I think, the one constant through all of that as the Mr. Reliable for the club during that period that we could always bank on. And thanks for giving us so much of your time this evening. And good luck when football does resume for the AFLW girls.
No worries, guys. Thanks very much for the chance to reminisce. And yeah, good luck, Saints, this week. I must admit, when the Saints played the Bulldogs last week, I had a foot in each camp, and I must admit I was pretty happy it went the way that it did. So yeah, I'm there loving it. My girls love it. So yeah, we're still Saints at heart.
Secret safe with us. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, guys.
Lowe gets them to centre half forward. Momentum with St Kilda. Oh, they were pushing forward. Hayes, there's Saints everywhere. Davis, the give was great. Hayes, look away handball. Darryl Wakelam, the defender, kick smothered. Nathan Burke to put St Kilda in front. Unbelievable.
Look at this ground.
Unbelievable.
I tell you what, if they could have filled it, the roof would have been ripped off this place with St Kilda's surge in the last 6 minutes.